that building is going on at UConn right now. Part of it, and there are other things as well. And hey, there.
Good evening, everyone. I apologize for being late. Our education committee meeting just concluded, and I just raced down from Harper.
Well, we're all done.
But that was
Well, wonderful.
did a great job. So to answer your question, a lot of that money came from bonding, but it was basically, it was kind of a crappy deal. I mean, there were a lot of, I'm all for helping companies like that come in. Here's the thing about politics and what I've learned. Sometimes we really have the same goal. Do I think Connecticut can be a bioscience state and a leader in that industry? Heck yeah. But how do we get there is the question. How do we get these businesses on board? Giving away the $300 million to Jackson Labs, probably not the way to do it. But again, we're at least looking in the right direction of creating that. And I support the governor on that. There's a life science caucus right now. We're all getting involved in it. So we do want to help that industry as much as possible. You guys have questions?
Just a fact issue. What percentage of the state budget comes from personal income tax that we pay? And what percentage comes from commercial and business?
We have the chart.
Yeah, it's on the
Yes,
chart.
it's right there in your handout, right there.
Yeah, it should be. It's the way I understand it, it's far,
39, 40% is income
yeah,
tax.
it's far more income tax.
I'm sorry,
19% is sales
which
tax.
page is that?
That is the
First pie chart.
yeah. On page 2 at the very top, you'll see that actually it's almost 40% state income tax. Sales tax is next with 19%. And you'll note that our business taxes are 7%. But when you look at that, please note that 75% of business in Connecticut is small business. And small business pays their taxes through their income tax, personal income tax W-2. And so when we get worried about raising that income tax, we're really raising it on small businesses. And I'm sure there's many of you in the audience, I know my husband and myself, when I had a small business before I went to work in finance, we felt it in our own pocketbook. So when you shrink that pool, oftentimes if you make a profit that year, you try to reinvest it, right? I know I'm talking to someone right here that I know very well, is one of those. It's really, really hard. So it's probably a bigger number than that when you talk about what percentage of the state gets their business. And what's even more interesting is that the areas that we shrunk in, and I had this chart put in there for you guys because I thought it was very interesting. It's the bottom part of page 2. Take a look at the bottom part of page 2, and you'll see where we had decreases in revenues that were projected. And that decreases in the sales tax, and that decreases in the business taxes, as well as gambling.
And that's important because one of the criticisms of the last budget was the fact that we were making decisions based on numbers that were somewhat inaccurate. They were made on estimates that we would save more money than we actually saved, and that we would have more revenue than we actually had. And there were times throughout the year where we do these consensus revenue estimates, and we knew it was coming, and we knew the problem was coming. But there were folks out there politically who really didn't want to see that and put it out that way. So that's where we ended up about 365 million short at the end of the year. Well, actually, it was more than that. It ended up being more like 5 million short and growing, because at the end, when you run out of money, those revenues that they're expecting were coming in, and most of that was from sales tax, and we overspent on Medicaid. So so this time around, one of the things that we try to do is, as we're going through the budgets, we want to make sure we're using numbers that are honest, that are actually vetted and honest and accurate. Because again, politically speaking, you can go, people want to fudge the numbers sometimes, and I think they're just hoping that later on the numbers, all get back together. And that didn't happen.
I mean, frankly, to Dan's point too, that's it's sort of off budget, so to speak, is our unfunded liabilities. And those numbers have been kept artificially low based on a rate of return of what?
It was 8.
It was 8% for.
No. 8.8 was what they built in. Anybody in finance and mentions, you know full well that you're not getting an 8.8 return. So they decided that maybe that was a little bit unrealistic, and so guess what they reduced it to? 8.25. 8.25. And I don't know about you guys, but I've been looking at my 401k, and I started off last year at 0.6% return. I'm doing great, I think, because I'm getting it almost up to 5. But generally, it's between 2 to 3%, which is what you should be building into it. So not only is it unrealistically high, it's underfunded. It's 42% funded. California is over 80. California. is 80%. 85 is fully funded because they think the investment returns will cover that gap.
That's right, so when you hear about, we're $2.5 billion off on the budget here and there, that's not counting the 60 to 70 billion dollars in the unfunded pension liabilities that are sitting there off the books, because it's not an annual budget cycle.
Yeah.
That's still out there. That debt service is why we're the number one, we're the highest per capita debt state in the country. That's why we're right there, and it sounds very negative, but you know what, the truth is the truth, the numbers don't lie.